Hello, everyone. I know this is a couple days late, but I was sick all last week. Anyways, the book that I chose for um, the book report presentation was Song of the Hummingbird by Graciela Limon. This book takes place in, so it was written in 1966, or 1996 rather, and it is takes place in 1582. And the main story is told um, about it's talking about the Spanish conquerors coming into the Aztec kingdom and basically ripping it apart and tearing it to shreds and rebuilding it into a an Anglo-Christian um, world, essentially a new society. Um, the main themes that were talked about in this book that I think were important were religion, and instead of it was more the talk of religion over spirituality, as well as one god over multiple gods, as the Aztecs believed. They had several gods that kind of dictated their lives. Um, and it also talks a lot about identity, which is I think a big theme throughout the class as well. Um, and I think that especially with the Spanish coming in and conquering the Aztec Empire, um, that played a lot into the identity of those that were part of the Aztec Empire and the stripping of their identities from um, the Spanish conquerors. Um, Something that was kind of a big theme was Eurocentrism, and this goes into the role of taking away um, the religious rights and the ability for them to express themselves religiously, how they feel with worshiping their gods and practicing their religious holidays and ceremonies, and going to their own I guess church, if you will. Instead, the Spanish came in and forced Christianity onto the Aztecs, and it really you know changed that alone, changed them and their entire identity. The Aztecs were known for their worship rituals um, and the things that they practiced, and the Spanish coming in really kind of stripped that from them and made it so that they couldn't do it anymore. It also brought in um, the the way that they spoke. It's their national language, and um, they were um, they were basically forced to learn Spanish and were judged based off of how well they spoke and how well they practiced the religion. And um, they stripped away the Aztec nationalism and replaced it with Spanish national. Um, and I think that that's important in the ways that um, that was their whole identity. And I think that goes to say with a lot of people, and that's why this book is important to me, is you go in and somebody tries to take things from you, and you lose yourself, at the hands of another person. I think it's important to remember that um, in uh, 15, 1582, this would have been right around, the dawn of pretty much South America as we know it, and the fall of the Aztec Empire was something that um, kind of shaped South America and Mexico into what we know it now, being that everybody speaks, well, not everybody, but a majority of people speak Spanish, and there's a higher amount of Catholicism than obviously indigenous um, spiritual practices. Um, I think that that's very important. Further, it talks about sexism and gender expression. And when the Spanish came over, they pretty much forced a heteronormative, lifestyle into everyone. Women were forced into these gender roles where they were meant to stay at home and cook. Men were meant to get jobs and, mesh into this new Christian world that they were now being forced into. And I think that that's another important point, as well as, colonization and the deterritorialization of the Aztec nation. You look at it, and this is a prime example of deterritorialization. The Spanish come in, wipe away anything that marks them or makes that, discernible from themselves. They I guess whitewashed, or washed away all of the traits that made them unique, and kind of put them under the thumb of the Spanish Spanish kingdom, the royalty, and in Spain. I think that another big thing that was talked about, that we also talked about in class, was La Malinche. And going back to who she was the interpreter and, I guess, kind of middleman, if you will. And I think that something that's big about her, especially in this time, was one of the people that came over in the Songs of a Hummingbird was Cortez, and she was who he was translating for. But on top of that, was also his mistress. And so this person that was, so important to the Aztec people, kind of in a way turned her back on them. She was a big role in how they were able to communicate and infiltrate into the Aztec communities and the Aztec Empire, and kind of tear it down from the inside out. And I think that it's a very important, especially again when it comes to identity. You put a lot of reliance into this person who claims that they are for you, and I think that that was the first hit when it came to losing their identity, because this person had claimed to be with them, for them, and turned her back on the Aztec people, and joined Cortez as his mistress as well as his translator, and was able to infiltrate into the Aztec Empire and kind of rip away the identity of the Aztec people from doing that. And I think that's important looking at today. I think that we all kind of put our faith into a person or a group of people or a way of thinking even, and once that is taken from us, then we kind of have a sense of identity crisis. That is, something that everybody deals with, I think, to this point. When we kind of see something for how it truly is, we kind of lose that hold, and that person loses their hold on us, or that idea loses their hold on us. And I think that's very important to note. But I think that this book really offered some really amazing insight into, the Aztec, the fall of the Aztec Empire, essentially. However, being that it was written in 1996, and it was told through the eyes of another person. It was like a narrated story. The narration isn't, necessarily, the narrator isn't necessarily, it's not very good narration, as you don't have like that actual firsthand account. You kind of have a story that somebody experienced, that they went through. However, it could always be, a little spiced up to, make it sound more interesting, or kind of keep the listener on the hook. But nevertheless, I think it was a phenomenal read. And I think that it really did shed a lot of light more into what we learned in the beginning of class with La Malinche and, the Aztecs, and how that all kind of played a role into the modern, South America and Mexico that we know of now. And how, Catholicism is one of the main religions in Mexico and South America, and how that came to be. But if you get the chance, go ahead and read it. But how do you guys feel about the role that La Malinche played? Do you think that she was more acting out of, good faith, that the Spanish were going to help to make the Aztec Empire prosper? Or do you think that she knew what was going on and was kind of acting out of selfish interest? And then, do we think that we see the same kind of traits and ideologies as the Eurocentrism, with, you know, different nationalities coming in, kind of wiping away and replacing religions, and linguistics, and, you know, the judgment on others when, you know, they aren't perfect. Yeah, so that's my report on the Song of the Hummingbird, and thank you.